Day 4. There is a sudden jerk as the marlin jumps in the air at night, raising the line to breaking point, and he regrets once more about the lack of the presence of Manolin. He washes his face with the dolphin, which the dolphin had smeared with meat to avoid nausea. He eats the flying fish to get energy, and the marlin begins to circle round the skiff, which is a sign of exhaustion. The marlin jumps in the air a dozen times, filling its air sacs with air, which means that it cannot sink into the water when it dies. Santiago pulls the fish nearer the boat, and he uses his harpoon to spear it, but misses. It is a strenuous exercise because he's exhausted, but he just wants to kill the marlin and put the battle to an end. After many attempts, he finally puts the harpoon through the marlin's heart, pushing the marlin to leap into the air for one last time. The marlin's blood oozes and spreads through the water. Santiago knows that this is bad news because it will invite sharks that will pick up the scent. The marlin is bigger than the boat, so he lashes it by the side of the skiff. As he does so, he thinks about how much it will fetch for him in terms of money. He thinks about how much pride that Dimagio and Manolin will be of his exploit at sea. Santiago begins the homeward journey. He is hungry. He eats some tiny shrimps floating on the weeds. He takes the last gulp of water, and his head becomes lighter. He continues to glance at the marlin and his injured hands, reminding him all had not been a dream, but reality. A mako shark picks up the scent of the marlin's blood. It attacks and bites a good chunk of meat. Santiago hits its head with a harpoon. It dies and sinks into the water. The beaten portion causes more blood to ooze in the water, and Santiago consoles himself with, a man can be destroyed but not defeated. He kills the fish because he's a fisherman, but his love for the fish does not diminish even in death. He begins to think if he has sinned by killing the fish, but he finally concludes that everything kills everything else in one way or the other. Santiago also knows that his fight with the marlin will be worthless if he loses all the meat to the sharks. He also realizes that the meat is of the best quality. He eats some of it in order to maintain his energy. He thinks of how much money that this good meat would have fetched him. 2 hours later, two shovel sharks appear. Santiago makes noise to frighten them. He uses his knife to kill the sharks, but they also eat a good chunk of the meat. He apologizes for killing the marlin and regrets that he had gone too far into the sea. The marlin has lost half of its meat, and he cannot bear to look at the fish anymore. A lonely shovel-nosed shark attacks. He kills it with his knife, but also loses the knife in the process. By dawn, 2 sharks also attack, and he fights them using the club. He wishes to arrive the shore even with half of the meat. He knows that when darkness falls, he will be guided by the lights of Havana Harbor. The sun sets, but he does not see the lights, and he promises to say many prayers to God when he is not exhausted. He regrets killing the marlin, venturing deep into the sea, and promises to fight the sharks with his last strength or energy. He spots the light at the harbor at 10 p.m., But at midnight, a group of sharks attack the boat. He uses the oar and the club to fight them, which he also loses. He uses the tiller of the skiff to chase them away, and by the time he succeeds to do so, there is no meat left on the fish. He inspects the skiff and notices that only the rudder has been damaged, but it can be repaired. He arrives at the harbor with the skeleton and blames himself for going too far into the sea. It is dark when he reaches the shore because the lights at the terrace had been put off, indicating that the other fisherman had gone to bed. He wonders if Manolin had looked for him all these days. He steps out of the skiff, gets on the rocks, ties the boat, looks at the giant skeleton of the marlin with regret as it shines on the light. He removes the sails, wraps the mast, and puts it on his shoulder as he drags it to climb the hill to his shack. It is heavy, and he rests several times because of exhaustion. When he arrives at the shack, he falls on the bed face down and falls deeply asleep. This section focuses on the final battle with the marlin and the homeward journey. The wounds on his hands makes him to become a Christ-like figure. The sharks represents the battles and hurdles of life. In life and in death, the marlin is Santiago's companion. There is irony that Santiago kills a marlin after many days of fruitless fishing, only to lose it to the sharks and return home with the skeleton. The skeleton symbolizes success in failure. The homeward journey is animated by hope because he knows that it will be difficult to take the marlin home safely. He refuses to give in to hopelessness and fights with the least strength, highlighting determination. The fight between Santiago and the marlin at sea symbolizes the fights of life, the struggles of life, which can either end in success or in failure.